Hare Krishna. Be not exhausted by the mind, be exhausted with the mind. To be exhausted by the mind means to work according to the mind's dictates and to become completely de-energized, discouraged, deflated because of its tireless demands, because of its relentless demands. To be exhausted with the mind means to recognize that the mind is different from us and that the mind has been making unwarranted and unwanted demands from us, and that we have no obligation to continue pandering to its demands, and therefore we become enough. We tell the mind, enough, I'm not going to listen to you, I'm not going to trust you. So be tired with the mind to, okay, give up, enough. So how do we do this? For that we can consider the example of exhausting people. In our social circle we may have some people who meeting whom just drains us. They may just continue meaningless prattle, or they may just have endless grumbling about things, or they may make senseless demands even from us. Get this for me, do this, do that. And when we understand the nature of such people, what do? In general, we try to avoid them. If it is not avoidable, then we minimize their influence. We minimize our contact with them and we try to get out of that. So by keeping a distance from such people, we avoid getting exhausted by them. So now if we can do something similar with the mind. The mind also, by its negative chatter, either it's irrelevant or it is dangerous chatter, the mind also exhausts us. Come on, do this, try that, go there, do that. And by such things, the mind leaves us exhausted. So often the mind's dreams and schemes for pleasure, the mind's complaints about various things, all of them just drain us out. Now the Bhagavad-gita warns us that the mind is among the worst of enemies. Bandhuratma-atmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. So that for one who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, the mind is the worst of enemy, is a dangerous enemy. Now what happens is, when the mind is not controlled, then it controls us. That means it makes its demands, its suggestions, its prompts, and we accept them. And gradually we'll find that we get exhausted. Oh mind, see this problem, solve this problem. Oh, there's a pleasure over there, go and get that pleasure. Do that. And in that way the mind entraps us. So what do we do to deal with this? The best way to deal with this is to recognize that actually we are not the mind. The mind is more dangerous than external exhausting people, because at least we know those people are different from us. Whereas we understand that we think that we are the mind, and we accept the mind's ideas as our own ideas. And that's how we come under its spell. Now the Gita wisdom, by its systematic analysis of our spiritual identity and of the mental level of reality, helps us understand that we are different from our mind. And thereafter it helps us to recognize how we are indestructible, how the mind entraps us. Now, in addition to this analysis, the Gita also gives us a practical way, the path of bhakti-yoga, by which we can experience higher devotional happiness. We can experience higher happiness in connection with Krishna by doing practical activities in His service. And this happiness, if we just consistently practice bhakti yoga, we experience a happiness which is far higher, deeper and richer than any of the pleasures that the mind has promised us, and whatever the mind may have delivered also. And if we keep persevering, then we start recognizing that what the mind offers is pale and stale as compared to what Krishna offers through bhakti. And then we distance ourselves from the mind and we regulate it. So at this stage, rather than we becoming exhausted by the mind, we become exhausted with the mind. That means we develop a healthy skepticism. We generally, if the mind suggestions are anti-devotional, we just say a firm no to them. If there are other suggestions, with a healthy skepticism we evaluate the suggestions and then decide how to act. In that way, when we live not as servants of the mind but as servants of Krishna, then rather than being exhausted by life, we are exhausted by the mind in the course of life, we will actually be rejuvenated and recharged by our inner connection with Krishna, who is the inexhaustible source of spiritual energy. And thus we will live happily, free from the exhausting extraction or exhausting extortion, exhausting enslavement by the mind. Thank you. Hare Krishna.